What's good, unapologetic gang? Thank you for joining in and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the spirit of comparison. So the devil is a liar. For the past month, I've been hearing a lot, or just some of the community, just talk about some of the issues that are beginning to affect us pretty seriously. So God's daughters have been coming up and they've been sharing all these issues about how they're deleting their social medias and taking a break from it. And one was crying on camera saying she was going to be gone. And no one understood like what was going on. And then the other came with a warning and told all of us to just delete our social media. But why is everybody doing this? Why? Because social media is people at their best behavior. You know, for me, it wasn't like social media was not really the issue. I've always been staying in my own lane, and God's been pruning me. But it was in real life when I went back to one of the towns I usually visit for vacation. And one person who did me some serious harm was in his new transportation with a female in the back riding off into the sunset, literally in his new home. So this is where I started getting attacked by the spirit of comparison. Where I didn't think that there was much for me to compare myself with anyone. I just don't really see that, right? It started happening when I was feeling like, what the heck? I'm minding my own business, and the person who harmed me badly is thriving. Even if it looks like the show from the outside, a quick snapshot, an occurrence, a happening in someone's life, it was heavy for me. The heartbreak, can you imagine? The spirit of comparison has been harming us for centuries. It's not this idea of keeping up with the Joneses. And this time we have to remember that the enemy, what the enemy meant for evil, God worked out for us. So I shared on an Instagram post that we will talk about God's blessing but not be braggadocious about it. I do feel like this is God asking us to remember and keep the spirit of humility. So as we're in the last days, people are doing things for likes, and some are even doing it for people to enter their home. He told me that just because you see that someone who is pregnant, unmarried, with a very handsome, successful man, doesn't mean that they're happy. Just because you're seeing people who are in their own personal spaces at home making prank videos doesn't mean that their relationships are happy. Sometimes we think that this may be the enemy, but just remember that God is omnipresent. This means he knows what is happening. He may even be supportive of what's happening, so we can hold on to the feeling of what it feels like for others. We're all come up stories. We are all come up stories. So we have to remember how to treat those who are in lesser situations spiritually than those who are doing better. The spirit of humility is so important. I remember seeing one post about a man that said that the showier a Christian is, the more superficial they are in faith. Yes, sure, I travel. I travel a lot. But I don't just make videos talking about that alone. I do feel like that's an important piece. Yes, I nomad. I just kind of go where the spirit tells me to go. I don't have a permanent home. It's an interesting story. And I'll probably talk more about that, about why I go from each town. But I haven't seen many of God's daughters settled yet. I've seen the majority of all of us still in transition for the grand finale. In most of our homes, we all suffered deeply from the spirit of comparison. This is not one place or space within each of us. It is generational and sometimes painful from a little bit of what we consider to be a lack of love. Now, the spirit of comparison hit me hard. We were having a class, and with the little money that I had, I was happy to invest in the class until I asked a question about what I could do to improve my YouTube channel. I've been watching lots of people who give prophetic words, and some have the biggest following. And they are not really loud. They just kind of, they don't, and some aren't even talking about much. They just keep to themselves in a really low voice, or they're in super loud and noisy areas. And then when it was my turn to just kind of ask a question, I was publicly critiqued. And about my channel, and then that's when it hit me. I broke out with a complete nervous breakdown, and I couldn't keep it together. I was starting to have an anxiety and a panic attack all at the same time. I wasn't not in the spirit, because this was in fact a church group that was led by a woman of God who gets on a good day, $10,000 a month, just making and updating videos with a prophetic word. But when I just sat down overwhelmed, and after listening, I typed, "Pray for me, guys, I'm having a panic attack." And then I heard, "Why?" Then she said, "I'm so sorry, this is too much. Really, we should be doing this in multiple classes, but this is just one." Then everybody else, others started typing that, "Look, this is only one person. The rest of us are still here." And this was when I fell into a really bad spirit of depression, and the enemy wanted me to do something with my life. Combined with, going to this vacation town, seeing somebody who, I'm like down to my last. I'm investing everything I can into stuff, and it's just stressful. I'm like, okay, I don't even have much here, and it was just, the spirit hit me. So the spirit of comparison doesn't end here. When I went to pray, and sometimes we get prophetic words, and we know that just because we got a word doesn't mean that we'll get it. We'll get it immediately. It won't come immediately, right? Sometimes most words